Henry was still completely confused. What? Why do I have to go to the R&D center? Lucas told Henry what he had heard from Naomi. This shocked Henry too. 10%? What an astronomical figure. Henry said, new energy is being vigorously promoted now, but the development speed of the industry is far slower than expected because it is restricted by technical bottlenecks. If the safety of the battery and the convenience of charging are improved, a series of problems will be easily solved. Cyan proposed such a fast charging speed. Carter, who is good for nothing, definitely couldn't achieve it. It must be the group's R&D center supporting him behind the scenes. It's too much. Henry got angry as he spoke. We didn't even hear a single whisper about this breakthrough innovation. They must have deliberately kept it from us. Yaoi has its own R&D department and always keeps in touch with the R&D center. If they didn't notice it, what else could it be but intentional? As a subsidiary of the group, Yaoi has always actively cooperated in this regard. In recent years, almost all the new energy data have been collected by Yaoi from the market and summarized to the R&D center. They have the right to share the experimental results. Be openly partial. What contributions has Carter made in recent years? Henry started to speak recklessly and directly said that the group was being partial. Leo tapped his fingers on the table. While Henry was very excited, he was calm. He said, "You'd better go to the R&D center and find out." Henry thought it made sense. He wanted to know the truth even if it meant facing a bad outcome. But he wondered if it was appropriate for him to go. "Mr. Leo, would you please go in person?" After all, Nolan is Leo's elder brother. Leo said, "No, you go." Henry nodded. "Okay then." He turned around, saw Lucas, thought for a while and said, "Secretary Lucas, come with me." Lucas was stunned. Leo looked up, thought for a moment and said, "Okay, go with him." So an hour later, Lucas and Henry were standing in front of the building of the group's R&D center. Henry looked at the scientific research building, sighed and said, "Secretary Lucas, I asked you to come with me because I hope you can cooperate with me." Lucas didn't understand. How should I cooperate? Act according to the situation. Henry couldn't explain clearly. Anyway, I'm a bit afraid of dealing with Nolan. It's surprising that an old fox like Henry would say such a thing. Lucas became even more curious about the director of the R&D center. Previously, Nolan had always existed only in people's conversations. Lucas had never had the chance to meet him. Now that he was about to meet the legendary eldest brother, the president, Lucas felt a bit excited just thinking about it. Lucas didn't have any particular feelings about Nolan at first. As the eldest son, Nolan had no choice about his parents. Being at the core of the conflict, if he dedicated himself to scientific research, he would be quite admirable. But he got involved in this dispute. Lucas was on Leo's side, so his impression of the eldest Chin son became rather delicate. There was no reception desk in the research building. There was only a security guard on duty. Henry explained their purpose, and the security guard called upstairs. Then he swiped his card to let them in. The elevator in the building was very spacious and looked like a freight elevator. Henry told Lucas that it was so big because they often had to transport equipment. Henry led Lucas to the director's office, but Nolan wasn't there. The staff inside told them that the director was in the laboratory. The two then headed to the laboratory. The decoration here was obviously different from that of the company. It was more concise and neat. Glass doors separated different areas. Through the glass doors, various kinds of instruments and equipment could be seen. From time to time, people in lab coats walked in the corridor. Henry stopped in front of a door and said to Lucas, "Inside is the key laboratory. You can't get in without permission." But soon someone informed the people inside for them. After a while, a person in a white lab coat came out. Lucas had imagined what Nolan looked like. As a researcher, he might be a bald old pedant, or perhaps a gentle and elegant intellectual wearing gold-rimmed glasses. But the real Nolan didn't match either of these images. He did wear glasses, but they were big black framed ones. He had a short ponytail at the back of his head. His hands were in the pockets of his lab coat. He was tall, but he was slightly hunched, looking slovenly and unruly. Lucas stared at this eldest Chin son. Is this guy really 35 years old? Can't be true. Nolan saw Henry and waved to say hello. Old Sue, you're still working as a wage earner. Henry twitched the corner of his mouth and said, If I don't work, who will pay me? Nolan wasn't interested in wage earner Old Sue. He looked at Lucas and his eyes lit up. Who is this beauty? Henry said irritably. This is the secretary of our Mr. Leo. Lucas introduced himself in good time. Hello, Director Chin. My name is Lucas. Nolan sized up Lucas and showed a meaningful smile, saying, I've heard of you. Lucas was puzzled. Why would the eldest young master know him? At this time, Henry interrupted. I'm here to handle business. What's going on with the 10% charging efficiency? Nolan said lazily. It's only now that you've come. Leo is really slow. Henry roared angrily. If you hadn't concealed it, would we have wasted so much time? Nolan greeted them. Don't quarrel here. Go to the lounge. The three of them moved to the lounge. Nolan called his assistant to make tea for the two guests. He himself held a thermos cup and slowly drank water. Henry was not in the mood to drink tea. He got straight to the point. Why did you hide the new technology from Shearway and deliberately bypass our R&D personnel? Nolan replied. It's the chairman's intention. He shrugged. I'm only responsible for scientific research. The chairman can give the results to whoever he wants. The words sounded nice, but did Nolan really have no self-interest at all? Henry silently cursed and then said, Then we apply for technology sharing. Nolan continued, It needs the chairman's approval. Without the chairman's permission, I have no right to make a decision. Henry gritted his teeth. Do you also want to help Shuriksen suppress Shearway? Nolan put down the thermos cup and looked at him pityingly. There's no need to play dumb in front of me. It's not Carter who's suppressing you, but the chairman. Even though it was made clear, Henry couldn't speak ill of the chairman in front of Nolan. He thought for a while and asked the thing he suspected most. Did Woojin get involved in this? Nolan didn't answer but just let out a laugh. This laugh was full of mockery and contempt. Henry's face turned a bit pale. Lucas didn't understand the meaning of this laugh. He couldn't get a word in edgewise from beginning to end. Nolan suddenly said to Henry, I get a headache just thinking about business matters. You businessmen are so annoying. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You can leave. Nolan pointed at Lucas and said, I want to have a chat with this beauty. Henry stared at Nolan resentfully for a long time. Knowing that he was impervious to persuasion, he finally stood up compromisingly and told Lucas, I'll wait for you outside. After saying that, he left the lounge. Only Lucas and Nolan were left in the room. Nolan stared at Lucas with great interest. Lucas felt his scalp tingle and heard him say, Leo hardly ever contacts me on his own initiative. Lucas didn't know why he was saying this. He looked up at this unpredictable scientific oddity. Nolan said, But he called me last year. He slightly raised his chin, looking filled with emotions. Our phone numbers have been in each other's phones for over a decade. It was the first time he took the initiative to call me. Do you know why he came to me? Nolan asked excitedly. Lucas shook his head. I don't know. Nolan said. He asked me to kick a guy named Benjamin out of the R&D team. Lucas was stunned. He hadn't heard the name Benjamin for so long that he almost forgot he once had a scumbag ex-boyfriend. It was the first time my younger brother called me. I had to handle this matter well. Nolan said with a smile. That Benjamin is just mediocre. It doesn't matter to kick him out. But I'm really curious why Leo came to me for such a person. Looking at Lucas, he said, I traced it back to you. Lucas was moved. He vaguely remembered Benjamin mentioning that he had quit the Shearway R&D team. He thought it was just a coincidence, but he didn't expect Leo to be pulling the strings behind it. Nolan observed Lucas' expression. You didn't know my younger brother asked me for help for your sake? Lucas blushed a little and said, Mr. Leo is very chivalrous and protective. I'm very grateful to him. Nolan stared at Lucas. After a while, he said understandingly, I see. His eyes were deep. The revolution has not yet succeeded. Comrades still need to work hard. Every word of the eldest young Master Chin was full of mystery. Lucas didn't quite understand. No wonder Henry was afraid to deal with him. Lucas didn't want to talk about private matters and changed the topic. We came here today to solve the problem of charging efficiency. When it came to business, Nolan put on a straight face. He said, It can't be solved unless... He paused. Lucas asked eagerly, Unless what? Please give me some advice, Director. Nolan twitched the corner of his lips and said, For the sake of you being a great beauty, I'll give you some information as a friendly gesture. Although being called a beauty made Lucas a bit uncomfortable, he still said politely, Please go ahead. Nolan said, Go back and tell Leo that the chairman is still in good health and can still work for another 10 years. Bangtian is not just the Bangtian of the Chin family. As for what should be done, Nolan smiled. Let him find a weakness for himself. Lucas took Nolan's 3 sentences and returned to the company with Henry to report to Leo. It was getting late. After Leo listened, he didn't react. He just told Henry to go back and rest early. Lucas naturally stayed. He looked at Leo and asked softly, Mr. Leo, are you okay? Leo looked at him strangely. What could be wrong with me? He paused and said, It's expected. From the moment Alexander wanted to take action against him, he had been prepared. Lucas really wanted to comfort the president. Leo was also human. No matter what the reason was, being treated like this by his own father, he had the right to be angry and the right to be sad. But there was no expression on Leo's face. He was abnormally calm. You've worked hard today. Go back early. Leo issued an order for Lucas to leave. Lucas didn't move. Usually he couldn't wait to get off work early. But today he didn't want to leave. He thought for a while and said, Mr. Leo, I still owe you a meal. Let me treat you today. Leo looked at him, suddenly stood up, and walked from behind the desk to in front of him. Lucas thought he wasn't short, but every time he got close to Leo, he had to look up at him. Leo lowered his head slightly and asked, Do you want to accompany me? This question was too straightforward. Lucas was a little embarrassed, but he nodded firmly. Leo said, Then I'll commandeer your shabby car. Lucas was still confused when he led Leo downstairs to the garage. Didn't the president dislike his car? Why did he want to take it again? What surprised Lucas even more was that this time Leo drove him to the passenger seat and drove in the driver's seat himself. Mr. Leo, let me do it. Lucas was scared to death. How could he dare to let the president drive for him? Leo adjusted the seat naturally, with a straight face and said, You tremble when you drive. I'm afraid you'll drive me into a ditch. Lucas shrank in the passenger seat, and the car drove smoothly on the road. Mr. Leo, where are we going? Lucas asked in a low voice. I'm not going to sell you. Do you have to be so scared? Leo said while driving. He added, Like a shy young wife. Lucas quickly straightened his body, stretched his shoulders, and said generously, I'm very manly, okay? Leo let out a sneer. Leo didn't tell Lucas their destination. It wasn't until Lucas got out of the car that he found out that this was actually a shooting range. Lucas had only seen this kind of place on TV. He opened his eyes wide and secretly sized it up. Leo strode inside, and immediately someone came up to greet him. Welcome, Mr. Leo. Leo pointed at Lucas and said to that person, Take him to the lounge and let him have something to eat. Lucas quickly asked, What about you, Mr. Leo? Leo gave him a casual look and said, I'm going to practice for a couple of rounds. After saying that, he took off his coat and simply threw it into Lucas' hands, then walked over to get a gun. Lucas hurriedly caught Leo's coat and followed the staff to the lounge. The food prepared in the shooting range was only passable. Lucas was thinking about the president in his heart, so he just took a couple of bites and felt full. He stood up, holding Leo's clothes, and walked in the direction of the shooting range. Soon, he found Leo. Leo was only wearing a shirt, with sound-proof earmuffs and goggles on. He was holding a weapon in his hand and standing in front of the shooting target. He lowered his head slightly, as if thinking about something. After a while, he raised his hand and pulled the trigger. The shooting tool in his hand seemed to have no recoil at all and didn't affect his posture in the slightest. He was tall and upright. His movements seemed casual but calm. His body remained motionless, but the bullets flew out at high speed as he wished. After Leo finished a round of practice, he put the gun beside him, turned around, and saw the young secretary standing behind, holding his clothes. Lucas' cheeks were slightly red, as if the evening glow had fallen on his fair skin. He hugged the coat tightly, as if afraid it would be snatched away. "You're so handsome, Mr. Leo," Lucas said with a blushing face. Leo asked, "Do you want to have a try?" Lucas shook his head and said with a smile, "It's fine just watching you practice." Leo didn't continue but said, "Nolan asked you to tell me those things. He was warning me." Lucas was taken aback. The president suddenly brought up this matter, and he didn't react in time. Leo then said, "Everyone has their own stance, and everyone is involved with multiple parties' interests. Sometimes one can't do whatever they want." Lucas listened quietly. Currently, the group is in a state of balance, and no one wants to break this balance. Breaking the balance means the redistribution of interests and also means a fight. Lucas understood. Neither the chairman nor Nolan's uncle wants Leo to be too prominent. Leo can get some interests, but not too much. Lucas pursed his lips and asked, "Mr. Leo, what are you going to do?" This time, Leo decided to follow Nolan's advice. "Find a weakness for myself." Lucas didn't understand this sentence the most. Leo called the staff and changed to a rifle this time. He held the gun, aimed at the target in front, his whole body tense. His muscles showed perfect lines through the shirt. He was like a black panther lurking in the dark, staring at the prey and waiting for a fatal blow. The bullet flew and hit the bullseye. Lucas listened to the popping sounds, and his heart also beat extremely fast. There was a faint fragrance from the clothes in his arms. He looked at Leo, feeling the visual impact and getting dizzy. Leo put down the thing in his hand again and said to Lucas, "The so-called weakness doesn't necessarily refer to one's ability." Through the goggles, it was hard to see the president's expression. His voice was as cold as usual. "It can also be about private life. Anyway, just create a handle for them to grasp." Lucas asked blankly, "What kind of handle?" Leo thought for a while, rarely unsure, and said, "Go out and indulge in debauchery to create the image of a playboy?" Lucas showed an indescribable expression. "Come on. With your cleanliness fetish, how can you be a playboy?" Leo himself also realized this problem and said crossly, "Then tell me what to do." Everyone in the blcommunity group knows that Leo is a workaholic. Since the day Leo took over Shearway, he has devoted himself entirely to his work. He single-handedly built Shearway into the outstanding company it is today. It's all thanks to his ability and hard work. No one can find any fault with him in his career. It's precisely because Leo has such a firm persona that some people feel very uneasy. These people even include his father, Alexander. As for Woojin Capital, Lucas thinks that Nolan's uncle still hopes that Nolan can take control of the blcommunity group. But for now, he is satisfied with the current situation and doesn't want the situation to change. The only unstable factor is Leo. An opponent without any flaws is too terrifying. Even if he just stands there motionless, there must be a crack in the egg. He has to let those people see his weakness and make them think they have a chance. Since Leo is impeccable in his work, they can only start with his private life. Leo's idea is correct. Even his mother thinks so, which is why she has been urging her son to get married, hoping to enhance Leo's competitiveness through marriage. Controlling Leo's partner is equivalent to restraining him. Lucas sighed again. No wonder the love lives of the wealthy young masters often attract public attention. This is also a part of the interest distribution. It's just that Leo's situation is more complicated because he is too picky. Lucas said, "You ask me what to do. I don't know either. You're the president. You have to figure it out yourself." Leo looked at him through his goggles and said, "If you can't help me solve my problems, what's the use of you? You're just getting paid for nothing." Lucas thought for a while and said, "Then I'll come up with a solution for you. You might as well be with Miss Layla. With Miss Layla's capricious personality, your private life will surely be very exciting. Oh, not only your private life, but also the company will be in a complete mess. Those who don't like you will be extremely happy." Leo thought for a while and said, "Why does what you said sound a bit sour?" Lucas was greatly surprised. "Where is it sour? It's not at all." Leo snorted, asked the staff to load the bullets, picked up the gun again, aimed at the bullseye, and fired a burst. Neither of them could come up with a good idea for a while. Or rather, they had thought of one but didn't say it out for some reasons. After Leo had vented for a round, Lucas asked, "Mr. Leo, finding out the weaknesses is a long-term project. What about the speed project? Are we just going to give it up?" The technical aspect was stuck. Even though Speed was currently doubtful about Shirexian's ability, in the end, they would still choose the 10% charging efficiency. Leo put down the gun, took off the earmuffs and goggles, revealing his handsome face with a look of disdain in his eyes. He said, "How is that possible?" Previously, they didn't know Shirexian's trump card. Now that they knew it was a technical problem, there were naturally other ways. "I'll make an appointment with Chairman Mason of Speed for dinner tomorrow." Lucas was puzzled. "Will he agree to see us?" Leo said firmly, "He will." He stood there, but it was as if he was stained with the smell of gunpowder, exuding a rough sense of hormones and an amazing aura. Leo maintained his usual enigmatic attitude. Lucas was already used to his tricky character of not explaining until the end. Even so, there was still a kind of magic about Leo that made people willing to follow him. Lucas used to think he was like a leopard, but now he thought he was a lion with absolute leadership, making others just want to submit. Leo raised his hand to rub his shoulder, looked at his shooting record with satisfaction, and said, "Okay, let's go back." He naturally reached out his hand to Lucas. Lucas was stunned and didn't understand what he wanted to do. "The clothes." Leo motioned. Only then did Lucas remember that he was still holding the president's coat and immediately blushed deeply again. Leo stood in front of him, raised his arms. Lucas blinked stupidly and then put the clothes on Leo. The actions of the two of them were so natural. While helping the president put on his clothes, Lucas asked softly, "I've touched this clothes for so long. Aren't you disgusted this time?" Leo straightened his collar. His fingers glided across the place where Lucas had just touched, and he said indifferently, "There aren't that many clothes to throw away." Lucas thought to himself that he hadn't thrown away those previous clothes and had kept them all in good condition. The next day, Lucas contacted the director's office of Speed and wanted to make an appointment with Chairman Mason. As Leo had expected, Chairman Mason agreed to the meeting this time. Lucas arranged the restaurant and the private room. The two groups of people arrived on time, giving a feeling of a meeting in the world of martial arts. Leo was much younger than a Chairman Mason. He led his people to toast Chairman Mason and said, "Chairman Mason, I truly admire you. When facing you, I only have one word, admiration." He can really hold his temper. No wonder he has been able to lead Speed for so many years. Chairman Mason laughed heartily and said, "It's really an honor to be praised like this by the prodigy of the younger generation." He patted Leo on the shoulder and replied in praise, "You're also very outstanding. There are few young people as flexible as you in handling things." Alexander was extremely annoyed. It was clearly a family matter, but they had to involve Speed. Fortunately, Leo was smart. Otherwise, it would have been hard to end the matter. After some mutual flattery in business, Leo finally started to get to the point. "Chairman Mason, regarding the new energy project of Speed, I've thought about it for a long time. Shirway and Shirexian come from the same root. Why should we fight so fiercely? Why can't we cooperate?" He said, "Shirexian has the technology and we have a mature production line and experience. Combining the two, isn't that exactly what you, Chairman Mason, want?" Chairman Mason nodded and said approvingly, "You've really hit the nail on the head. I've always had this idea, but it's not appropriate for me to propose it. Old Fox. He had this plan from the beginning. He just watched them fight back and forth without saying a word. He procrastinated until the end, and finally Bangtian made concessions." Leo remained calm and accompanied Chairman Mason in the act. He sighed and said, "It's also not appropriate for me to propose it. That's why I've come to find you, Chairman Mason. Chairman Mason understood. I didn't propose it before because I didn't know your thoughts. In case you were determined to go all the way and end up in a lose-lose situation with Mr. Carter, it wouldn't be appropriate for me, an outsider, to force you. Now that you've taken the initiative to propose cooperation, we'll have 2 votes on our side. I'll go and talk to your Mr. Alexander about the rest. Chairman Mason clinked glasses with Leo and gave his assurance. Leo's proposal is a sure-win deal for Shearway in the current situation. Shearway has production lines and experience, and it's not lacking in technology either. The only thing it lacks is that 10% of charging efficiency. Cooperating with blxin, nominally the 2 companies will make this money together. In reality, it will surely be mainly Shearway that takes the lead. After all, Shearway is a company that specializes in power batteries. Although it's said to be a cooperation, it's equivalent to Shearway sharing a portion of the money with blxin and buying the key technology from blxin. Shearway has taken a step back to seek a win-win situation. The only annoying thing is that they have to deal with Carter frequently. Carter had someone retrofit the production line before, which shows that he is eager for change. Now asking him to go back to the old ways, even if he gets a sum of money to ease his crisis, he won't be willing in his heart. I don't know if it's because of Carter, but Alexander didn't agree to this proposal immediately either. Leo didn't care. After all the considerations, there will surely be a result. Just wait. He asked Lucas to arrange a charity event and invite Chairman Mason to participate. After all, Chairman Mason has spoken for them and put in a lot of effort. Chairman Mason has no other hobbies. He just likes to engage in charity and likes to make a big deal out of it. Maybe he can gain spiritual satisfaction from it. No matter what the purpose or form is, charity is always a good thing. Lucas came up with a planning scheme called Elizabeth and arranged everything. They are going to hold a charity art exhibition. They will set aside a part of the area to display children's paintings. Finally, these paintings will be auctioned and part of the money will be donated as charity funds to support education in mountainous areas. Of course, the auction won't only include charity works. The real bulk will be other paintings. The overall planning will be arranged by Elizabeth. In this way, it can attract big shots to do charity and also make a lot of money. Chairman Mason is very satisfied with this event. He took quite a few photos in front of the children's paintings. Lucas invited the media to write several press releases about Chairman Mason, praising him as a caring and socially responsible entrepreneur, and posted them on major websites, which made him very happy. Chairman Mason has his own entourage. Lucas didn't go up but just followed from a distance. Elizabeth came over to chat with him. Handsome campus guy, we didn't have a good talk last time we met. Reminded of the incident at Ray's restaurant last time, Lucas felt a shiver down his spine. He asked, you haven't had any contact with Thomas anymore, have you? Elizabeth waved her hand. I took your advice and haven't had any contact with him. But our circle is small and sometimes we run into each other. He is now a relatively popular up-and-coming designer. Stop. I don't want to know anything about him. Lucas stopped his old classmate from going on. Okay. Let's not talk about him. Let's talk about that guy. Elizabeth winked at Lucas. Which guy? It's that one, your boss. Elizabeth cupped her face. He's tall, handsome, and rich. He's just like a character out of a novel. Lucas said expressionlessly, you won't think so once you hear him talk. Elizabeth asked, what do you mean? Lucas said, he's rather not tactful. Just as he finished speaking, he heard a cold voice from behind, talking bad about me behind my back again. Lucas turned around and saw Leo standing behind him, staring at him menacingly. Fortunately, he had learned his lesson and didn't easily make extreme remarks in public, or he wouldn't be able to handle the president's sudden appearances. Lucas said calmly, Mr. Leo, I was just praising you. Why are you here? Leo glanced at him. Since he didn't catch him in the act, he said, Ms. Elena heard that you're holding a charity art exhibition and auction and insisted on coming to join in the fun. Lucas quickly said, I'll go and make some arrangements. Leo stopped him. She brought her assistant. There are people there to handle it. Lucas gave up then and introduced Elizabeth to Leo. This manager Wu is my college classmate and is in charge of this event. Actually, the two had met at the Ray restaurant, but at that time, Elizabeth was in the crowd trying hard to be unnoticed, so Leo didn't have an impression of her. Elizabeth was extremely excited. Because of her job, she dealt with rich people, but none of them was as much like a domineering CEO in a novel as Leo. Last time when Leo stood up for Lucas, Elizabeth put on rose-tinted glasses and imagined a lot of novel character settings for Leo. Mr. Leo, I've long admired your name, Elizabeth said with a smile. Leo nodded as a greeting. Suddenly remembering something, he asked, Lucas, is it her who introduced a blind date partner to you? Lucas was stunned. He didn't expect Leo to associate it with the blind date and subconsciously nodded. Leo said to Elizabeth, your eye as a matchmaker needs improvement. Don't let that 5-yuan carnation guy come out and cause trouble for others. Elizabeth was stunned. Lucas looked at his old classmate with pity. He had said that once Leo opened his mouth, the illusion would surely be shattered. Over there, Elena arrived at the art exhibition site. First, she dealt with the media according to the procedure and then browsed the works in the gallery. Leo didn't know where he had gone. She had clearly come for him. She had always been concerned about the company's affairs. She also knew that Alexander was targeting Leo. At home, Elena had made a fuss. She said to Alexander, Nolan is your son and Leo is too. Just because he has one more mother than Nolan, do you have to bully him like this? But Alexander refused to give in no matter what. I'm not bullying him. I have my own considerations. I have to be responsible for the whole group. Elena said angrily, it's all just an excuse. Your heart is just biased. The two started arguing about old things again as they talked, and finally it ended without a result. Elena was very anxious. She always thought that if Leo could get married and have a child earlier, maybe Alexander would recognize Leo as the heir for the sake of the third generation. But Leo himself was not in a hurry at all. Not only did he reject her introduction, but he also got very close to his secretary. Elena felt restless just thinking about Lucas. That young man was very likable. He was obedient yet smart and good-looking. At that annual meeting, when he danced on the stage, even she, an old hand in the entertainment industry, was attracted. She wasn't sure about the relationship between Leo and Lucas. Leo should not be interested in men, but Elena knew that her son had psychological barriers and it was very difficult for him to get close to anyone. He was different only towards Lucas. Anyway, Elena was extremely worried about her son's affairs. Originally, everyone was competing for the speed car project. But unexpectedly, Leo suddenly slacked off these days. He proposed a cooperation plan to Chairman Mason of Speed without caring whether Alexander agreed or not. He just got along very well with Chairman Mason and even catered to his interests by holding a charity art exhibition, looking as if he was celebrating his victory in advance. Elena knew that her son had many ideas, but she still couldn't rest easy. She decided to come to the art exhibition to take a look. By the way, she wanted to take another look at Lucas and investigate the relationship between the two of them. That's just how mothers are, always worrying. Elena walked around for a while before she found Leo. Sure enough, he was with his secretary. Fortunately, there was also a little girl standing beside them. When Lucas saw Elena coming over with several assistants, he respectfully greeted, "Good day, madam." Elena said with a smile, "Hello, Secretary Lucas." After all, Elena is a public figure. Elizabeth coordinated with the assistants to dismiss the others so that a few people could have a good chat. Elena praised this art exhibition. Lucas took the opportunity to give a big compliment to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, who had just been hit by disillusionment, came back to life. She tried to get on well with Elena desperately, hoping that she could do more publicity for the gallery. Only Leo stood beside Lucas boredly, somewhat disliking their chat content. Just then, a man suddenly walked over and was stopped by the assistant beside. Several people were attracted by this commotion. Lucas looked at the person coming and always felt that this person looked a bit familiar. When the man saw Elizabeth, he first greeted, "Elizabeth, I've come to see the art exhibition." Then he saw Elena and looked surprised. "Sister Elena, you're here too." Lucas was still confused while Leo frowned first. Elena said to the person coming with a smile, "Isn't this Andrew?" She directed the assistant to let him in. "Let him come over." In that instant, Lucas remembered this person. "Isn't this Andrew, his former blind date partner who gave a 5-yuan carnation?" Lucas immediately got goosebumps. Leo had a better memory than Lucas. He still remembered the carnation man and said in a deep voice, "Don't let him in." But it was already too late. Andrew walked over. Not understanding the situation, when he saw Lucas and Leo were also there, he showed a confused look and said, "Why are you here too?" His expression was a bit envious. "Did you come to see the art exhibition together? It's so nice to be a young couple. I've been on several blind dates later, but I'm still single." Elena was stunned for a moment, then mechanically turned her head and looked at her son and his secretary, asking, "Which two are a couple?" Lucas once worried that Elizabeth would be a big mouth, so he had told her the truth in advance. But he never expected to meet Andrew here. He even forgot what Andrew looked like. Who is he trying to get familiar with blindly? Lucas wanted to say to Elena, "Madam, this is a misunderstanding," but didn't know how to start, so he could only pin his hopes on Leo. Who would have thought that Leo, who usually liked to argue and contradict others, was silent at this moment and just stood there thoughtfully. Elena pulled Andrew and asked eagerly, "Andrew, who on earth are the couple you're talking about?" Andrew didn't know the relationship between Elena and Leo. Scratching his head, he pointed at Leo and then at Lucas and said, "Them." He even added self-righteously, "There are so many same-sex couples these days. It's not rare anymore." Everyone fell silent. Lucas looked utterly dejected, Leo was expressionless and no one knew what he was thinking. Elizabeth looked around in surprise and uncertainty, and Andrew blinked in a daze when he saw everyone was silent. Only Ms. Elena covered her heart. Just as expected. That 1 million must be spent anyway. "Madam," Lucas said difficultly when he saw Leo was silent, "please listen to my explanation." Ms. Elena looked extremely grief-stricken and stopped him from speaking. "There's nothing to explain. I knew it. What do you know? Why don't I know? Andrew, what's going on? Do you all know each other? Elizabeth, if you can't speak properly, just keep quiet." Seeing that these people started to act out a TV drama scene, Leo spoke up at this time. "Okay, calm down everyone." He turned to Andrew and said coldly, "Do you know why you're still a single dog?" Andrew was even more confused and shook his head. Leo told him, "Because you're both useless and talk too much." Leo didn't look at Andrew anymore and asked, "Elizabeth, is there a lounge here? I'd like to have a private chat with Ms. Elena. Elizabeth then suddenly woke up from her reverie and quickly made arrangements. Then Leo took the distraught Elena away. Elena suppressed the turmoil in her heart. Before leaving, she looked at Lucas with a complicated look. That look was full of ups and downs and hidden undercurrents, which made Lucas jump with fright. As expected of a veteran actor, there's so much going on in those eyes. The mother-son duo walked towards the lounge. "The president should explain everything clearly to Ms. Elena, right?" Lucas asked Andrew helplessly, "How do you know our chairwoman and how did you get here?" Andrew was completely confused from beginning to end and said, "My family is in the entertainment business and has contacts with Sister Elena. I came here today because I heard there was an art exhibition. I like to visit art exhibitions. Why does everyone like to call Ms. Elena sister? Have they considered the feelings of the great-nephew?" Lucas then remembered that Andrew was set as a rich second generation who liked to visit art exhibitions. Why would a rich second generation buy 5 yuan carnations? Leo took Elena into the lounge, isolating outsiders. There were only the two of them. Elena was thinking about how to express her shock and dissatisfaction when Leo suddenly called out, "Mom." After Leo grew older, he rarely called her so affectionately. He always addressed her as Ms. Elena. Elena was stunned. Before she could be touched, she heard Leo say, "From today on, I like men." Ms. Elena was dumbfounded. What does "from today on" mean? Should she get angry or not? Leo continued, "I like men and have an affair with my secretary." He thought for a while and changed his wording. "Having an affair is not strong enough. Let's just say we are in a relationship. I'm having an underground romance with my secretary." Elena was stunned. After the shock, she sensed something was wrong and asked, "What do you mean?" Leo looked into his mother's eyes calmly and said, "It means exactly what it says. After you learn about this, you'll be very sad and go back to cry to the chairman." Elena blinked. She didn't want to tell Alexander. Even if she had witnessed her son's affair with his secretary, she never thought of informing her husband. Leo continued to fabricate, "Of course, this is not a decent thing. After you discussed it with the chairman, you decided that family scandals should not be made public and would not disclose this matter to anyone." Leo emphasized again, "Never tell anyone else. Don't make a fuss. Although Nolan's uncle would surely find out." Elena was confused by him. "Are you asking me to do this? Why do you like men? How did you get involved with the secretary?" Leo was very calm and said to his mother, "I must do this and so must you." Elena was a bit sad and murmured, "I was still counting on you to get married and have children." Leo asked his mother to sit down on the sofa in the lounge and analyzed the current situation for her bit by bit. "Now Woojin Capital is wary of me and the chairman is also dissatisfied with Shearway. If I marry a woman from a very good family, what will they think?" Elena was stunned. She wasn't a fool. Combining with what had happened recently, she immediately understood. If that happened, Woojin Capital would immediately start a business war in order to divide the interests before Leo completely took control of the group. And Alexander would also strive for more guarantees for himself and Nolan. Then it would be in chaos. What Leo needs to do now is not to make himself stronger, but to show weakness. So, I like men now. Leo asked Elena, you will do as I said just now, right? In the Chin family, only Elena and Leo are the eternal strategic allies. Elena calmed down. I understand. I will do as you say. Leo was very satisfied. That's right. Elena sat there, her mood fluctuating. She was angry one moment, worried the next, and then heartbroken. Look at how the child has been forced. He came up with such a method. Wait a minute. Elena was still a bit unwilling. She looked up and stared at Leo and asked, are you and Lucas really a couple? Leo gave an ambiguous answer. In your eyes, yes. Elena wanted to stand up from the sofa to get a clear answer but was held down by Leo. Leo continued to blur the focus. If you think so, then so be it. Lucas told Elizabeth to take Andrew away and then went to say hello to Chairman Mason himself. Originally, when Leo and Elena came, they should have been arranged to meet Chairman Mason. But now the two of them have been staying in the lounge and not coming out. So Lucas had to go and deal with Chairman Mason by himself. Later, even Chairman Mason left. Lucas waited for a long time before he saw Leo walking towards him. Lucas asked carefully, Mr. Leo, is Ms. Elena okay? Leo said calmly, I've had someone send her back. Just went back like that. Lucas asked again, did you explain it clearly to her? Whether he explained it or not, he must have left a very bad impression on Elena. As the mother of the president, Ms. Elena might not take a fancy to him and fire him. Thinking like this, Lucas felt a bit depressed. Leo stared at the top of Lucas's head and said, come with me. Lucas looked up. Leo hooked his finger at him. I have something to say to you. Although Lucas didn't understand what the president was going to do, he obediently followed Leo out of the gallery. Seeing them leave, Elizabeth whispered, are they really a couple or not? One moment they say yes and the next moment they say no. It's confusing me. Leo actually took Lucas back to the company. It was a rest day today, so there weren't many people in the company. The two of them went upstairs all the way and walked into the president's office, which was extremely familiar to both of them. As soon as Lucas entered, Leo reached out and directly closed the door. The two of them were in an enclosed space. Usually, Lucas often stays alone with Leo, but today, for some reason, it's especially awkward to be in the same room as the president. Maybe it's because they were mistaken for a couple today. Lucas stood there, waiting for Leo to speak as usual. Leo said, sit down. There is a large guest sofa in the president's office. It's made of good quality leather and looks very soft. Lucas rarely gets a chance to sit on it. He always stands and listens to Leo speak. Lucas was flattered and said, no need, Mr. Leo. Just say what you want to say. Leo insisted that he sit down and said, today we're not in a superior-subordinate relationship, but business partners. I want to talk to you about a business deal. Lucas was stunned and sat down on the sofa blankly. Leo sat next to him, crossing his legs. Just like really talking about business, he looked into his eyes with a serious expression. Lucas couldn't stand this atmosphere and said, what on earth is it? Just be straightforward. Leo thought about his words for a while and then simply came straight to the point. You date me. Lucas almost fell off the sofa. His first reaction was, oh my God, is it a comet hitting the earth? Leo added, I'll pay you. Lucas slowly realized the embarrassment and shyness. His face flushed red and he stammered, what does dating have to do with money? Leo added 2 words, pretend. Lucas, see. Please don't miss out words when you speak. Leo told Lucas his idea, which was similar to what he said to Elena. Lucas wasn't unaware of his current situation, but he just didn't expect Leo to choose him as his weakness. Homosexuals won't have children. There's no better persona than this, Leo said. Lucas calmed down. The blush on his face faded and he fell silent. Actually, when they were at the shooting range before, he vaguely had the same thought in his mind. Why not just let the president publicly announce that he likes men? Although same-sex marriages are increasing, they are still in the minority. But he didn't dare to make this suggestion to Leo. Now that the president has approached him, Lucas understands that it's basically a matter of making use of today's situation. Leo knew what was on his mind. He took on the stance of a negotiator and said to Lucas, I'll give you an additional salary. Of course, you can also refuse. If you do, I'll immediately go to my mother and tell her the truth. Lucas looked at Leo, feeling more and more uncomfortable. So this is what it feels like to be the president's business partner. It's so unfamiliar. I'm still more used to being a subordinate. Leo continued to persuade, I know you're worried that this will have an impact on your career. All I can say is that I'll try my best to minimize the impact and won't let too many people know. Lucas remained silent. He remembered that at Ray's restaurant before, Leo had stepped forward for him without hesitation. Everyone present had thought that Leo was his boyfriend. He also remembered that at Mr. Caleb's birthday party, he had grabbed Leo's arm and showed off his new partner in front of Benjamin and Thomas. That was the origin of everything. One thing led to another, and it has actually developed to this point today. If it weren't for his pride, Andrew wouldn't have exposed them today. Since the president has helped him, it shouldn't be a big deal for him to help the president in return. Lucas finished thinking and said to Leo, I can do it. Leo raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect Lucas to agree so readily. The two looked into each other's eyes, seeing each other's figures. For a moment, neither of them said a word. It's so unreal. I'm going to play a fake lover with the president. Lucas cleared his throat and said seriously, Mr. Leo, you once said that I was arrogant. Now that I think about it, it's really true. Leo listened to him quietly, looking very focused. Lucas then said, I'm arrogant, so I hope you can win. Leo paused. If being your weakness can make you lull your opponents and buy you a chance, I'm willing to do it. Lucas knew that Leo had ambitions and also knew that the matter of speed was just the beginning. He clenched his fist and no longer used honorifics. He said, Mr. Leo, I support you. I want to fight side by side with you. After saying that, he felt a bit embarrassed. Was he being too enthusiastic and taking himself too seriously? He was just a low-level secretary. How much of a role could he play? Leo stared directly at Lucas and asked, Are you sure? His voice was a bit hoarse. Lucas nodded, sure. Leo suddenly stood up from the sofa, fetched a few pieces of paper, put them in front of Lucas, and said, Let's draw up a contract. Lucas, It's not necessary. You're so stupid. Leo criticized, when doing business, if you don't sign a contract, you're just waiting to be deceived. Don't just stand there. I'll dictate and you write. Okay. Lucas grabbed the pen. Leo scolded him again. He was more used to the sarcastic CEO. On the first line, Leo and Lucas shall start to act as a fake couple from this day on. Lucas picked up the pen and wrote down these words. Involuntarily, his face blushed again. He always felt so ashamed. The scope of the act is only limited to occasions where it is necessary for each other's interests, such as in front of the people of the Chin family, in front of Lucas's ex-boyfriend and the other woman, etc. The CEO even considered him. He was so touched, but the content was so embarrassing. Lucas was so ashamed and indignant while writing. Leo shall separately pay Lucas an additional salary. Leo said, and then asked, How much do you want? Lucas didn't expect there to be room for bargaining and said, Forget it, Mr. Leo. You've also helped me spread some smokescreens. Leo squinted at him and said, What you did was just a petty thing. I'm serious here. Lucas, acting determined how much he can get in the group. Lucas looked solemn and only then realized the arduousness of the task. Leo is well versed in the art of employing people. If I don't use money to constrain you, I can't quantify your efforts. Then it's impossible to supervise and evaluate. What if you run away halfway through the act? The evil capitalist has taken exploitation to the extreme. Leo determined an amount. It'll be the same as your current salary. Lucas was startled and said, So much. There's no need to act every day. You hardly ever see the chairman throughout the year. It's just that the madam has been showing up more frequently recently. Leo looked at him and said coldly, You're so inexperienced. Those bosses give gifts to their mistresses, and one gift can be worth a junior secretary's annual salary. Leo didn't tell Lucas about these things. He just said, Make a note that this money will be paid by me personally and has nothing to do with the company. Lucas wrote it down obediently. Although he said no on the surface, he was secretly delighted. He's one step closer to buying a house. Continue, Leo ordered. During the acting process, no one is allowed to quit halfway. Lucas can accept this. During non-acting periods, the two of you should still maintain a normal superior-subordinate relationship and complete the company's work tasks. Of course, Lucas doesn't want to be gossiped about by his colleagues. Leo added, No slacking off. Lucas, see. These 4 words don't need to be written in, right? Leo said, See if there's anything else you want to add. Lucas shook his head. Leo looked at him again with an ungrateful look in his eyes and said, Add one more item. During the period of pretending to be a couple, one party shall not physically or mentally harm the other party. Lucas slowed down his writing speed. He asked softly, Mr. Leo, does this contract really have legal effect? Leo said, Stupid. When the time comes, you just hand this piece of paper to my father and he'll give you a large sum of money. As the superior and the boss, the president doesn't need to consider these things at all. Lucas understood that Leo asking him to write this contract was to give him some guarantee and to make him feel at ease. Lucas secretly lifted the corners of his lips. After finishing writing, he looked up and asked with a smile, "Mr. Leo, should we add a time limit?" Leo looked into his clear eyes and said in a low voice, "Until we win." Lucas was pleased by the word "we." The smile on his face was bright and cheerful. "Okay. The day of victory won't be far away." Leo asked Lucas to photocopy the handwritten contract. Then the two of them signed and stamped it at the bottom, and each of them kept a copy. Doing such an absurd thing with such a serious attitude is a bit funny and a bit crazy. The two of them each held their own copy of the contract and sat at the two ends of the sofa. He didn't feel it just now, but now he just realized he was embarrassed. Lucas blushed slightly and didn't know what to say. Leo seemed calm. He crossed his legs, hung his head, and looked calm. Only the fingers that tightened the contract betrayed his inner feelings. Embarrassment spread between the two of them. The familiar office atmosphere had changed. Lucas spoke up to break the silence. "Anyway, we don't need to act now. We'll just go about our normal business at work tomorrow." Leo looked at him and bluffed, "Of course. Just make sure you don't blow your cover when we're acting." Lucas thought that I have more dating experience than you. No matter what, I should be a bit better than you. But he didn't dare to voice his doubts. He just suddenly thought of a question. Will the chairwoman come to find me? After all, Elena was stimulated today. Leo remained silent. After a while, he said, "Maybe." Lucas immediately felt like facing a great enemy and said nervously, "Will she, like in the novels, slap a check in my face and tell me to leave you?" Lucas was just joking, but unexpectedly Leo said, "It's really possible." Lucas was shocked. Leo turned his head and said, "If she gives you money, consider it your extra income." Lucas asked cautiously, "How much will she give?" Leo asked, "What do you think?" Lucas thought for a while, deliberately reported a low amount, and said shyly, 100 million?